Welcome to the shadows of history and the echoes of the unspeakable, where ancient walls whisper secrets of the past under the cloak of night. You are about to enter a realm where the boundaries between the living and the dead blur, a place steeped in curses and sorrow. This is the haunting of Banffy Castle. Nestled in the heart of Transylvania, Banffy Castle stands as a monument to a bygone era. Its once majestic halls now home to more than just memories. They say the castle is cursed, a relentless fate cast upon the noble family who once walked its corridors with pride. Now they wander through the night, trapped in a perpetual lamentation, their souls unable to find peace. As we peel back the layers of time, prepare to uncover the tragic tales of betrayal and forbidden pacts that sealed the fate of the Banffy lineage. Listen closely, for each creaking door and sudden chill in the air might just reveal another piece of this haunting puzzle. Are you ready to step into the darkness? Are you prepared to face the spirits that roam these halls? Keep your wits about you. The story of Banffy Castle is not for the faint of heart. Join us as we venture into the unknown, in search of truths best left unspoken, in a story where the past is never truly dead. Welcome to our journey into the haunting of Banffy Castle. In the heart of Transylvania, shrouded by the dense forests that cloak the Carpathian Mountains, lies the ancient and formidable Banffy Castle, a monument not just to the grandeur of its architecture, but to the mysteries and legends woven into its very stones. As our story begins, we find ourselves at the gates of this enigmatic fortress, where history whispers through the cracked walls, and the winds carry secrets of centuries past. Built in the 14th century, Banffy Castle was the seat of the powerful Banffy family, known not just for their noble bloodline, but for their deep involvement in the political and cultural tapestry of Romania. With its opulent halls and sprawling gardens, the castle was a symbol of wealth and influence, hosting lavish parties attended by aristocrats and intellectuals alike. But beneath its luxurious veneer, a darker narrative pulses, one mired in tragedy and supernatural tales. The legends say that the Banffy family was cursed, doomed by a vengeful act that would bind their spirits to these very grounds. It is told that a family member, driven by greed and forbidden desires, betrayed his own kin to gain supernatural powers. This betrayal unleashed a curse that would see the family's souls trapped within the castle, condemned to roam its halls for eternity, tormented by their own misdeeds. As night falls over Banffy Castle, the air grows thick with the weight of unspoken fears. The locals speak of eerie lights seen in the dead of night, of shadowy figures that flit through the garden's mists, and of haunting cries that echo through the corridors when the moon is full. They say the spirits are restless, forever reliving their downfall, forever bound to the place of their ultimate betrayal. To this day, Banffy Castle attracts those who are drawn to the supernatural, historians seeking to unravel its past, and thrill seekers hoping to catch a glimpse of the otherworldly. Its walls, now partially crumbled with age, stand as a stark reminder of the impermanence of glory and the enduring power of legend. As we venture deeper into its shadowy halls, let us tread carefully, for the line between the past and the present is thin here, and the spirits are watching, always watching. In this chapter of our tale, as we peel back the layers of time, we invite you to journey with us into the heart of darkness that is Banffy Castle. Listen as the castle reveals its stories, not through words, but through the chilling breeze that whispers down its abandoned halls, through the soft footsteps that follow you, always just out of sight, and through the oppressive silence that begs the question, what lurks in the shadows of Banffy? As we delve deeper into the spectral world of Banffy Castle, the air around us thickens with the whispered tales of those who once lived, and perhaps still linger within these storied walls. Let us turn the pages back to the days of grandeur and intrigue, to uncover the noble family's history and the dark origins of the curse that binds them to this place. The Banffy family, once among the most prestigious nobilities in Transylvania, were renowned not just for their wealth and power, but also for their patronage of the arts and sciences. The castle buzzed with intellectual debates, grand balls, and the laughter of guests who were oblivious to the creeping shadows that would soon envelop their hosts. The head of the family, Count Laszlo Banffy, was a man of fierce ambition and questionable morals. Known for his charismatic yet manipulative nature, he wielded his power with a heavy hand and a cold heart. It was under his rule that the seeds of the family's doom were sown. Driven by an insatiable desire for immortality and power beyond mortal means, Count Laszlo ventured into forbidden territories of dark arts and ancient purses. Legend whispers of a night, shrouded in the dense fog of a new moon, when Count Laszlo summoned a dark entity, bargaining his soul and the souls of his lineage for eternal life. The entity, a malevolent force as old as time, agreed to the Count's terms, but with a twisted promise. The Banffys would indeed roam the earth eternally, but not as living beings instead. They would be trapped as specters within the castle's grounds, bound to their ancestral home, forever echoing the life they once knew. The curse took effect immediately following Count Laszlo's mysterious and untimely death, which plunged the castle into a series of tragic events. His descendants, each more tormented than the last, reported seeing visions of their forebear, warning them of the eternal anguish that awaited. One by one, they fell into madness, or met untimely deaths, their spirits joining the growing throng of shadows within the castle walls. The community around Banffy Castle began to whisper of the family's misfortune, of the lights that danced in empty rooms, and the laughter that echoed in sealed chambers. It wasn't long before the castle was shunned, feared as a place of cursed souls and unending night. Now, as we stand amidst the ruins of such a once lavish empire, we can almost hear the faint echoes of the past, the desperate attempts of the Banffy family to break the chains that bind them to this spectral existence. Each whisper in the wind, each shadow in the twilight, tells a story of lost glory, a family doomed by its own patriarch, forever caught in the web of his dark dealings. In this chapter of our tale, the past and present blur, as the history of the Banffys unfolds like a dark tapestry, woven with threads of ambition, power, and an eternal curse that holds them prisoner in their own home. Let us tread softly, for to awaken the spirits of Banffy Castle is to stir the very curse that ensnares them. In the shadowy heart of Banffy Castle, where whispers of the past blend with the chill of the present, lies the pivotal moment that sealed the noble family's doom. Tonight, in the velvety cloak of darkness, we explore the tragic betrayal and the forbidden pact that unleashed the curse upon the Banffy lineage, a curse that echoes through the corridors with every step we take. Count Laszlo Banffy, the patriarch whose ambition knew no bounds, harbored a desire not just for power, but for the forbidden fruit of immortality. Obsessed with the idea of transcending the mortal coil, he delved into ancient, arcane texts, seeking out dark rituals and entities spoken of only in hushed tones. His search led him to a forbidden pact that would promise him eternal dominion over his realm, but at a terrible cost. The pact required the Count to perform a ritual on the night of a blood moon, a night when the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest. Under the shadow of this ominous moon, Count Laszlo gathered his most trusted advisors and family members within the castle's ancient chapel. There, cloaked in secrecy, they began the ritual that would call forth the dark entity from the depths of the netherworld. As the ritual progressed, the air inside the chapel grew thick, candles flickering as though struggling against an unseen force. The Count, his voice resonant with power and fear, recited the incantations that would bind the entity to his will. But as the final words were spoken, a terrifying silence enveloped the room. It was then that the true nature of the pact revealed itself, not through the granting of immortality, but through a cruel twist of fate. The entity, far more malevolent and cunning than the Count had anticipated, demanded a sacrifice in exchange for the eternal life it could bestow. The price was the soul of the Count's beloved daughter, Elizabeta, whose innocence and purity made her the perfect offering. Stricken with horror, but driven by his unyielding desire for power, Count Laszlo faced the ultimate choice between his own eternal damnation and the life of his child. In a moment of unspeakable betrayal, the Count agreed, sealing not only his fate, but that of his entire family. The chapel was consumed by a darkness so dense that it seemed to swallow all light, all hope. When it lifted, Elizabeta was gone, her soul claimed by the entity, and the Count was left with the realization of his grievous error. From that night forward, the curse took hold. The Count, racked with guilt and madness, wandered the halls of his castle, a hollow shell of the man he once was. His family, bound by the chains of his dark dealings, were cursed to roam the castle, trapped in an endless loop of sorrow and regret. This tragic betrayal, this forbidden pact, marks the darkest chapter in the history of Banffy Castle. It is a reminder that some doors, once opened, can never be closed. As we walk through these haunted halls, each step echoes the fateful choices of the past, and we are reminded that some curses, once cast, are eternal. In the chilling air of Banffy Castle, the whispers of the end remind us of the price of forbidden knowledge and the eternal cost of a moment's greed. As dusk weaves its dusky veil over the ancient Banffy Castle, the boundary between day and night blurs, ushering in an age-old dance of shadows. This is the time when the castle reveals its true nature, not just as a relic of architectural grandeur, but as a living, breathing entity marked by the echoes of its cursed past. Let us tread quietly through its halls, where the night awakens with a chorus of eerie occurrences. The sun's last light fades over the horizon, casting long, sinister shadows against the crumbling walls of the castle. A chill sets into the air, the kind that seeps deep into your bones, whispering of impending dread. It is in these initial moments of twilight that the castle begins to stir from its daytime slumber. Visitors and locals alike have reported the first signs of the supernatural as a sudden drop in temperature, a precursor to the spectral activities that lie ahead. Lights flicker without cause, and candles extinguish as if snuffed out by an unseen breath. The stillness of the air is broken by the faint sound of footsteps that echo through empty corridors, accompanied by no living soul. As night fully envelops the castle, the rare traveler who dares to wander these halls might glimpse shadows moving independently of their sources. These are not mere dregs of the light, but are believed to be the spirits of the Banffy family, bound to the mortal realm. Their forms, caught in a perpetual loop of unrest. Soft murmurs float through the air, indecipherable whispers that seem to be carried by the very walls of the castle itself. They are the remnants of conversations long past, desperate to be heard, to be remembered. In the grand ballroom, where once laughter and music filled the air, there is now an oppressive silence. Suddenly, it is broken by a faint melody, a piano playing softly, delicately, as though hesitant to fully awaken. The keys move under invisible fingers, playing a lament that is both beautiful and haunting, a reminder of the castle's lost glory and its eternal sorrow. Windows that have been long shut creak open without prompting, letting in gusts of wind that carry with them the scent of the old forest that surrounds the castle. The air is thick with the aroma of decayed leaves and earth, a smell that is at once comforting and suffocating. And then there is the mirror in the main hallway, a relic as old as the castle itself. Visitors report seeing fleeting reflections that do not belong to them, a glimpse of a woman in a flowing gown, a shadow of a man in military attire, faces that stare back with eyes full of sorrow and secrets. These are not mere reflections, but windows to the past, each one a trapped soul looking out. As we navigate through the darkness of Banffy Castle, every sound, every movement feels amplified, a symphony of the supernatural that plays on the strings of our deepest fears. The night here does not just bring darkness, it brings life to the stories of those long gone, stories that are as much a part of the castle as its stone and mortar. This chapter of our tale does not end with the setting of the sun, but begins anew each night, as the castle, alive with its cursed legacy, continues to tell its tale to those who dare listen. As we leave the shadowy halls behind, the echo of our steps a reminder of our own fleeting presence, the true inhabitants of Banffy Castle prepare to recount their stories once more, in the eerie, unending cycle of night. In the eerie silence that blankets Banffy Castle, as the night deepens, the air is thick with the presence of the past. Each room, each corridor holds a tale, whispers of lives once lived within these walls. Now, as we wander further into the heart of the castle, we are about to encounter the spirits of the Banffy family, each one eternally bound to their tragic stories. Our journey begins in the dimly lit library, a sanctuary of knowledge where the weight of silence is almost tangible. As the clock chimes midnight, a soft rustling can be heard among the ancient tomes. The figure of a man appears, almost transparent, his features etched with worry, and his eyes filled with an endless sorrow. This is the spirit of Alexander Banffy, the family's youngest scholar, who spent his final days searching for a way to break the curse that would ultimately claim his sanity. He moves between the bookshelves, his fingers brushing over the spines of books he can no longer read, trapped in an eternal quest for salvation. Moving through the grand corridor, our path is crossed by a chilling draft. The air grows colder as the figure of a young woman in a flowing gown glides silently across the floor. Her face is serene yet somber, marked by the beauty of youth that will never fade. She is Elizabeta, the daughter sacrificed by Count Laszlo to seal his dark pact. Her spirit is often seen in the moonlit gardens or by the grand staircase, lingering where her life took a tragic turn. Visitors report hearing her soft sobs, a mournful sound that serves as a lament for her stolen future. As we ascend the creaking stairs to the upper chambers, a sudden movement catches our eye. A spectral child runs playfully along the hallway, disappearing into thin air as quickly as he appeared. This is the spirit of young Nikolai, the heir who died mysteriously as a child. His laughter sometimes fills the halls, a sound that is both joyous and heartbreaking, echoing through the castle like a reminder of the innocence lost to the curse. In the tower room, under the pale light of the moon, we encounter the imposing figure of Count Laszlo himself. His spirit is the most restless of all, doomed to relive his grievous decisions. His presence is often marked by a sudden drop in temperature and a feeling of oppressive dread. Those who have seen him say his gaze is both pleading and accusing, a mirror to his tormented soul, forever recounting the moment his family's fate was sealed. Each encounter with these spirits leaves an indelible mark on the visitor, a chilling connection to the tragic history of Banffy Castle. These spectral manifestations are not merely hauntings. They are narratives, each one a story of loss, love, and betrayal, woven into the very fabric of the castle. As we conclude this chapter and leave the darkness of the night to the true inhabitants of the castle, we carry with us the haunting echoes of their existence. In Banffy Castle, the past is never truly past, and the spirits of the noble family continue to tell their stories, hoping perhaps for someone to hear, to understand, to remember. The castle, a silent witness to their tragedies, stands as both their prison and their sanctuary, a place where history is both preserved and cursed. As the spectral inhabitants of Banffy Castle wander their eternal domain, one spirit's sorrow permeates the cold stone walls more deeply than others. In this chapter, we focus on a haunting figure whose grief is as palpable as the chill that seeps through the castle's aged foundations. She is the matriarch of the Banffy family, known in her lifetime as Countess Maria, whose cries in the dead of night are a mournful serenade that echoes through the corridors, capturing the essence of tragedy that envelops this cursed place. Countess Maria, once a figure of grace and beauty, now roams the halls of her ancestral home, trapped in a moment of devastating loss that replayed itself throughout her final days. Her life, marked by the early deaths of her children and the ultimate betrayal by her husband, Count Laszlo, became a wellspring of endless sorrow. Her spirit, unable to find peace, manifests in the most secluded and shadowy parts of the castle, particularly in her private chambers and the once vibrant drawing room, where she spent many lonely hours staring out at the overgrown gardens. Visitors to the castle report hearing her heartbreaking wails when the castle is shrouded in the silence of night. These are not just simple sounds. They carry the weight of her grief, the depth of her loneliness. Each cry is a lament, a call that seems to seek out comfort, or perhaps an end to her eternal mourning. The air around her feels heavier, colder, as if her despair is a tangible thing that can chill the bones of those who dare to listen. Her apparition is often seen in the early hours before dawn, dressed in a gown of flowing silk that whispers along the floor as she moves. Her face is pale, her eyes hollow, reflections of a soul marred by tragedy. The Countess is usually seen near the grand fireplace in the drawing room, where an eternal phantom fire burns, providing no warmth, but reminding her of the coldness of her fate. On certain nights, when the moon is just a sliver in the sky, you might hear the soft notes of a piano playing from the drawing room. They are slow and somber, a melody that the Countess once played in her happier days. Now, these notes are filled with a melancholy that is almost too profound to bear. It's as if the piano itself remembers her touch, her sorrow, and plays on in her stead a ghostly recital of grief. The story of Countess Maria is not just a tale of woe, but a powerful reminder of the emotional chains that bind the spirits to Banffy Castle. Her presence adds a layer of deep, emotional texture to the haunting, making the castle not just a place of spectral sightings, but of profound human tragedy. In the darkest hours of the night, if you find yourself within the walls of Banffy Castle, listen carefully. The cries you hear, the soft piano notes in the air, are not just echoes of the past. They are the Countess's ongoing struggle with her sorrow, her yearning for release, and her lingering presence in this cursed fortress. Her story is a woven tapestry of loss and eternal grief, a sorrowful chapter in the haunted legacy of Banffy Castle. As the night deepens its hold over the enigmatic and foreboding Banffy Castle, it draws in not only the echoes of its own haunted past, but also those souls brave enough to tread its cursed grounds in search of secrets long buried. These are the seekers, individuals driven by curiosity, desperation, and the faint hope of breaking the ancient curse that shrouds this place in perpetual sorrow. Among these seekers, we first meet Jonathan Harker, a determined and somewhat skeptical paranormal investigator from England. He has come to Banffy Castle armed with the latest in ghost hunting technology, seeking to document and perhaps rationalize the inexplicable occurrences reported here. His motivation, though scientific on the surface, is deeply personal, driven by a need to connect with his own past, to a lineage that whispers tales of Eastern European nobility and dark family secrets. Accompanying him is Elena Dragulescu, a Romanian historian with a profound connection to the region's folklore and a deep-seated belief in the supernatural. Her expertise in the legends surrounding Banffy Castle makes her an invaluable guide to its shadowy hallways and tragic history. Elena's interest in a castle is both academic and spiritual. She believes that understanding the curse might bring peace to the restless spirits within, including that of her distant ancestor, believed to have been a confidant of the Banffy family. As Jonathan and Elena step through the ancient oak doors of the castle, the air shifts, as if the very stones recognize the intrusion of living souls into a domain of spirits. The castle, with its towering ceilings and whispering shadows, seems to watch them, its silence a heavy cloak around their shoulders. Their exploration begins in the main hall, where portraits of the Banffy family hang in faded grandeur on the walls. Here, Jonathan sets up his equipment, infrared cameras, and EVP recorders, humming softly in the oppressive silence. Elena, meanwhile, recites softly from an old tome, her voice weaving through the darkness, calling to those who have passed yet linger. The night unfolds with a series of eerie manifestations. Jonathan, usually a skeptic, finds his disbelief shaken when a sudden coldness envelops him, and his thermal camera captures the unmistakable outline of a figure standing beside him. Yet, when he turns, there is nothing but air. Elena, her hand clasped over her mouth, whispers, "It is he, the old Count himself." Their journey takes them deeper into the castle, into the library where ancient books hold secrets of dark magic and tragic pacts. As Elena runs her fingers along the spines, a book falls to the ground of its own accord, opening to a page describing the very ritual that cursed the Banffy family. They read aloud the incantation, and the air around them crackles, as if charged with ancient energy. In the cellar, where the air tastes of mold and forgotten things, they encounter the spirit of the Countess Maria. Her sorrowful apparition appears before them, her face etched with the agony of centuries. Elena, tears streaming down her face, speaks to her in hushed Romanian, offering words of comfort. For a moment, the spectral countess's face softens, and the oppressive atmosphere lifts a sign, perhaps, that understanding and empathy might be the key to breaking the curse. As dawn approaches, Jonathan and Elena leave the castle, their minds reeling with the night's discoveries. They know that this is just the beginning of their quest. Armed with new knowledge and a profound sense of connection to the spirits they have encountered, they are more determined than ever to delve deeper into the mysteries of Banffy Castle. This chapter closes not with an end, but with an invitation to continue the journey with our seekers. As they return to Banffy Castle, with renewed resolve. Theirs is a path lined with danger and the unknown, but also with the hope of bringing light to the darkest of places. In the foreboding silence of Banffy Castle, where time itself seems ensnared by the heavy shroud of the curse, our seekers, Jonathan and Alina, delve deeper into the labyrinth of ancient texts and hidden chambers. Each step and each page turned is a movement towards understanding, or perhaps a descent into the castle's dark heart. The day begins under a heavy, brooding sky, as if the heavens themselves are wary of what might be uncovered. Jonathan, with his equipment recalibrated for the day's investigation, and Alina, armed with her vast knowledge of arcane lore, find themselves standing before the massive oak door of the castle's oldest wing, a section seldom touched by the light of day, and riddled with rumors of hidden rooms and forgotten secrets. With a firm push, the door groans open, dust swirling like ancient spirits disturbed. The air inside is cool and musty, thick with the scent of mold and decay. This part of the castle, untouched by time, holds the archives a veritable trove of manuscripts, maps, and artifacts, each potentially holding a clue to the nature of the curse that grips the Banffy family. Alina lights a lantern, casting eerie shadows on the walls as she and Jonathan begin their meticulous search. The flickering light touches upon an old leather-bound book, its cover embossed with symbols of alchemy and mysticism. With reverent hands, Alina opens it, revealing pages yellowed with age, filled with cryptic illustrations and writings in Latin. They pore over the text, translating and interpreting. Here, amidst the arcane symbols, they discover references to the blood moon ritual performed by Count Laszlo, including a chilling depiction of the dark entity summoned, the clue to the supernatural forces at play. As they delve further into the room, Jonathan's attention is caught by a peculiar draft coming from a wall lined with ancient tapestries. With a curious glance exchanged, they pull back the heavy fabric, revealing a small, hidden door, barely large enough for a person to pass through. Hearts racing with anticipation, and not a small amount of fear, they open it, discovering a narrow, spiraling staircase leading down into the darkness. With only the lantern to guide them, they descend. The air grows colder with each step, the oppressive feel of the castle intensifying as they reach the lower levels. Here, they find a small, circular room, its walls lined with more texts, and disturbingly, a circle of stones etched with runes in the center of the floor. Jonathan sets up a camera to record, while Alina examines the runes, recognizing them as part of a containment spell, likely an attempt by a later Banffy to bind, or perhaps mitigate, the dark forces unleashed by the Count. They hypothesize that the conditions of the curse are tied to these runes, possibly maintaining the spirit's presence within the castle. Amidst their investigation, a sudden chill sweeps through the room, and the lantern flickers violently. In the dim light, they see shadows moving independently across the walls, as if the darkness itself is alive. The camera's screen goes static, and for a moment, they hear a low, haunting whisper echoing through the room, though the words are indiscernible. Terrified but driven by the need to know more, Jonathan and Elena hastily gather the most crucial texts and artifacts, including a fragment of a diary possibly belonging to the Count himself, before making their way back up to the safety of the daylight. As they emerge from the depths of the castle, both are visibly shaken but resolute. The pieces of the curse's conditions are slowly coming together, forming a map of tragedy and power that they are determined to understand fully. Their day's findings have opened new avenues to explore, new theories to test, and perhaps a glimmer of hope that they might find a way to break the centuries-old curse. In this chapter, our seekers have not only uncovered deeper secrets, but have also felt the curse's palpable presence, a reminder that some truths lie hidden, guarded by shadows not eager to relinquish their grip. The path forward is fraught with danger, but the drive to bring peace to the tormented spirits of Banffy Castle urges them onward. Under the cloak of an ominously starless night, the corridors of Banffy Castle hum with a palpable tension, as if the ancient stones themselves sense the impending invocation. In this pivotal chapter, our seekers, Jonathan and Elena, armed with newfound knowledge and a haunting determination, prepare to conduct a ritual one that holds the promise of peace for the tormented spirits, or perhaps even the power to break the dark curse that binds them. The chosen location for the ritual is the castle's grand hall, where the energies of past events are strongest. The hall, with its vaulted ceilings and gargantuan fireplaces, now stands cold and echoless, a stark contrast to its days of laughter and light. As Jonathan sets up his equipment around the perimeter, monitoring for any changes in the environmental readings, Elena carefully arranges the artifacts they've gathered. Ancient texts, the diary fragment from the hidden room, and the rune-etched stones, forming a circle in the center of the hall. They begin at the stroke of midnight, when the veil between worlds is thinnest. Elena lights candles at each point of the circle, their flames flickering uncertainly, as if resisting the suffocating darkness that tries to snuff them out. She starts chanting in Latin, her voice steady but her hands trembling slightly as she recites the incantations designed to call forth the spirits and bind them to her will. Jonathan watches, his digital recorder capturing every sound, every whispered word. He's skeptical but hopeful, his eyes scanning the screens that show thermal and electromagnetic readings spiking intermittently. The air grows colder, and a low fog begins to form around the edges of the circle, creeping inward as the ritual progresses. As Alina reaches the climax of the chant, the candles flare wildly, casting long, monstrous shadows against the walls. The atmosphere is charged with a heavy, electric anticipation. Suddenly, the shadows move independently, swirling around the circle like dark tendrils searching for something or someone. Elena's voice wavers but grows stronger, pushing through the palpable resistance of unseen forces. Then, with a deafening silence that roars in their ears, the figure of Count Laszlo appears within the circle. His spectral form is clearer than ever, his eyes blazing with a mix of fury and desperation. Alina steps forward, holding out the diary fragment, speaking directly to him, her words a plea for understanding and forgiveness. She tells him of their discoveries, of the containment ruins, and offers a path to redemption for him and his family. The Count's visage contorts with conflict, his gaze darting around the room, as if seeing his domain for the first time in centuries. Behind him, the forms of Elisabetta and other family members materialize, their expressions mingled with hope and sorrow. Jonathan, despite his scientific mind, feels a lump in his throat at the sight of the reunited family, their fates hanging in the balance. In a moment fraught with tension, the Count nods slowly, a gesture of acquiescence. Alina, with a deep breath, completes the ritual, her final words echoing through the hall like a verdict. The candles burst into one brilliant flare, and then extinguish, plunging the room into darkness. When the lights return, the spirits are gone, perhaps freed, perhaps at peace. Jonathan and Alina collapse, exhausted, their faces pale, but their spirits lifted. The equipment around them buzzes quietly, returning to normal readings. As they gather their things, the castle around them feels different, lighter somehow, as if a great weight has been lifted from its ancient shoulders. In this chapter, our seekers have faced supernatural challenges with courage and a deep compassion for the souls they sought to help. Whether the purse is truly broken, or the spirits merely appeased, remains a mystery, one that Banffy Castle may keep. But for now, the night is silent, and for the first time in centuries, it seems at peace. As dawn breaks over the imposing silhouette of Banffy Castle, the early morning light does little to dispel the heavy shroud of uncertainty that now hangs over its ancient battlements. The ritual, performed with such hope and desperation by Jonathan and Alina, has concluded, but the castle's response is as cryptic as the shadows that linger in its deepest corners. In this chapter, we unravel the consequences of the ritual, exploring whether it served as a liberation, or merely a harbinger of deeper darkness. The immediate aftermath of the ritual brought a palpable silence, a quiet that Jonathan and Elena first believed to be a sign of success. The oppressive air that once filled the halls seemed to lift, and for a moment, the weight of centuries appeared to dissipate. However, as they gathered their equipment and prepare to leave the grand hall, a subtle shift begins to unfold, one that neither science nor spirit can easily explain. The castle, which initially seemed to accept their efforts, now starts to reverberate with a series of low, rumbling sounds, almost as if the very stones are groaning under an unseen strain. The temperature, which had normalized following the ritual, begins to drop sharply, reaching chilling depths that force Jonathan to glance at his instruments in disbelief. The readings, previously settled, now spike erratically, as if responding to a disturbance not of this world. Elena, with a historian's intuition for patterns and meanings, senses that something remains unresolved. The spirits of the Banffy family, though momentarily visible during the ritual, did not convey clear messages of release or redemption. Instead, their expressions were mingled with confusion and sorrow, suggesting that their ties to the castle may be more complicated and entangled than any ritual could sever. As they exit the grand hall, a new phenomenon emerges. Faint, ethereal whispers fill the corridors, growing in intensity. These whispers are not the clear voices of the Banffy spirits they had come to recognize, but a cacophony of voices, old and new, that suggest the ritual may have disturbed other entities long dormant within the castle's walls. The duo pauses at the sight of the main staircase, where a new apparition now appears. This spirit, unknown to the castle's lore, stands with a menacing posture, its eyes hollow, its presence exuding not sorrow, but anger and malice. Jonathan captures this figure on his camera, the image blurred yet unmistakably threatening. This unexpected presence suggests that the ritual, while perhaps reaching the Banffys, may also have unleashed something far more ancient and malevolent. With growing apprehension, they realize that their actions may have unintended consequences. The castle's history, layered with countless generations and imbued with myriad energies, might have intersected too complexly for a single ritual to untangle. The curse, tied not only to the family, but perhaps to the very land itself, appears to have deepened, its roots spreading into darker soils. As they make their way out of the castle, the early light casts long shadows, and every sound seems to echo with a sinister twist. Jonathan and Elena leave with more questions than answers, their minds troubled by the thought that their attempt to heal may have instead opened new wounds in the already scarred legacy of Banffy Castle. In this chapter, the consequences of the ritual reveal the intricate and often unpredictable nature of dealing with ancient curses. The castle, with its long and spectral history, accepts no interference lightly, and every action taken within its walls can lead to unexpected outcomes. As our seepers retreat, the story of Banffy Castle continues to unfold, a reminder that some mysteries remain stubbornly resistant to even the most determined efforts to solve them. As the chill of the unknown creeps along the walls of Banffy Castle, Jonathan and Eileen are drawn back, compelled by unresolved mysteries and the unsettling consequences of their previous ritual. In this chapter, they delve deeper into the essence of the curse, uncovering layers that suggest it is not merely tied to the family itself, but woven into the very fabric of the castle. The day is gray, the clouds hanging low as if mirroring the somber mood of our seekers, as they step once again through the ancient doorway. The castle, with its turrets reaching into the brooding sky, seems to acknowledge their return with a silent, ominous welcome. Jonathan, his equipment recalibrated to detect even finer anomalies, and Elena, her notes and texts more heavily annotated, are prepared for whatever may come. Their first task is to revisit the Grand Hall, the site of their last encounter. The air here is noticeably denser. The previous lightness vanished, as if it were but a brief respite in the ongoing saga of the castle. As they set up their equipment, the walls themselves seem to pulsate with a quiet intensity, the stones cold and foreboding under their touch. Elena, her mind a whirlwind of historical data and supernatural theories, suggests they explore the foundation of the castle itself. According to old architectural blueprints, there exists a series of underground chambers and tunnels, long sealed and forgotten. These, she theorizes, might hold the key to understanding the true breadth of the curse. With cautious steps, they find an entrance to these subterranean depths, hidden beneath an old rug in the derelict servants' quarters. The hatch creaks ominously as they open it, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness. The air is musty, filled with the scent of earth and decay, a tangible reminder of the age of this place. As they descend, their flashlights reveal carvings on the walls, symbols that match none found in their texts. These markings, Elena hypothesizes, could be ancient protective wards, or perhaps sigils meant to bind something within. Their presence suggests that the origins of the curse might be much older, and a Banffy family, perhaps as ancient as the castle itself. Reaching the bottom, they discover a large, cavernous room, its center dominated by an old stone altar. The air around it vibrates with an almost electric charge, the hairs on their arms standing on end. Here, Jonathan's instruments go wild, the readings off the charts as they approach the altar. It becomes clear that this place was used for rituals long before Count Laszlo's time, possibly for centuries. Each layer of use adding to the curse's complexity. As they document their findings, the room grows inexplicably colder, and a low hum fills the air, a sound both mesmerizing and terrifying. The ground beneath them trembles slightly, as if the castle itself is reacting to their discoveries. When Alina places her hand on the altar, she recoils as if burned, her eyes wide with shock. She whispers that she felt a surge of emotions, pain, anger, sorrow, all entwined and overwhelming. It dawns on them that the curse is not simply a tale of one man's folly, but a legacy of many, bound deeply to the land, and a castle built upon it. The rituals performed here, layer upon layer, have created a web of spiritual entanglement, tying the spirits not just to their family's history, but to the castle itself as a sentinel of sorrow. As they ascend back to the surface, the weight of their discovery looms large. The curse is more than a family tragedy. It is a historical and spiritual labyrinth, each turn and twist revealing more of its intricate and deep-seated nature. In this chapter, Jonathan and Alina come to realize that the story of Banffy Castle is not theirs to end, but to understand. As they grapple with a past that refuses to be forgotten, echoing through the ages with the sound of bound souls. In the shadowed halls of Banffy Castle, a profound understanding dawns on Jonathan and Alina as they confront the undeniable truth. The spirits that roam these corridors, bound by chains of ancient rites and deep-seated curses, may never truly be freed. This final chapter unfolds under a pall of resignation mixed with a newfound resolve to honor and preserve the tragic legacy of this place. As the morning light filters weakly through the stained grass of the castle, casting colors onto the stone floor that seem all too vibrant against the somber backdrop, Jonathan and Alina gather in the library, a room once filled with scholarly pursuits, now a sanctuary of their own making. Surrounded by the dusty tomes and parchments that have guided their journey, they deliberate on their next steps. Jonathan, ever the skeptic, has come to accept that some phenomena defy the conventional parameters of science. He sets aside his instruments, the screens and dials that have flickered with the unseen energies of the castle, acknowledging that not all that is understood can be explained away or resolved. His focus shifts towards documenting their findings, not to solve the mystery, but to ensure it is preserved, respected, and perhaps most importantly, not disturbed further. Alina, her connection to the castle deepened by the experiences of the past days, decides to reach out to the local community. She organizes meetings with the elders of the nearby villages, sharing their discoveries and listening to the oral histories that have been passed down through generations. These stories, which with personal accounts and folklore, weave a tapestry of the castle's place in the landscape of local culture and history. Together, they work to establish Banffy Castle not just as a site of historical significance, but as a place of spiritual respect. They advocate for protective measures that prevent looting or vandalism, often the fate of such storied ruins, proposing instead that it be preserved as a heritage site. Plans are made to install informative plaques that explain the significance of various locations within the castle, each room, hallway, and hidden alcove where they encountered the spectral residents, or uncovered part of the castle's cursed history. In the grand hall, where the chill of the unseen lingers most strongly, they arrange for the restoration of the faded murals and the fractured statues, ensuring that the visual grandeur of the castle mirrors the profound stories it houses. Here, Jonathan sets up a permanent display of the equipment used during their investigations, a testament to the blend of science and the supernatural that defines their journey. As the project progresses, the castle slowly begins to draw visitors, not thrill seekers, but those who appreciate the depth of its history and the sanctity of its hauntings. Jonathan and Elena lead tours, recounting the tales of the Banffy family, the rituals performed, and the spirits they believe they have come to know, not as mere echoes of the past, but as enduring presences to be acknowledged and respected. In a quiet moment, standing by the window overlooking the overgrown gardens, Elena admits to Jonathan, "Perhaps our role was never to free them, but to understand them, to coexist with them in a way that respects both their turmoil and their peace." As our story closes, the sun sets over Banffy Castle, casting long shadows across the land that has borne witness to centuries of history. Jonathan and Elena depart the castle, leaving behind a legacy of respect and remembrance, their own lives forever changed by the spirits who remain, timeless guardians of their ancestral home. In Banffy Castle, the past and present merge, each respecting the other, coexisting in a perpetual dance of shadow and light. As the tale of Banffy Castle closes, the echoes of its haunting resonate beyond the ancient stone walls, spiraling out into the world, a siren call to those drawn to the mystery and the macabre. The castle, with its towering turrets and shadowed corridors, remains an enigmatic sentinel on the landscape, its legacy a complex tapestry of history, tragedy, and the supernatural. The haunting of Banffy Castle is not merely a series of ghost stories. It is a profound narrative about the human condition, about the depths of regret, the chains of the past, and the elusive nature of redemption. The spirits of the Banffy family, and others entwined in the castle's dark history, are reminders that some marks are indelible, some histories too potent to fade into the mists of time. As the castle stands now, a site recognized for its historical and spectral significance, it continues to attract a diverse tapestry of visitors. Scholars come, drawn by the lore and the unresolved mysteries that academic texts cannot decipher. Paranormal enthusiasts walk its halls, equipment in hand, eager to catch a whisper, a shadow, a sign. And then there are those who come simply to feel the weight of history, to stand where countless others have stood, in the presence of something undeniably greater and more enduring than themselves. The stories of Banffy Castle have become part of the local folklore, tales passed down through generations, each retelling adding layers to the legends. Children grow up with warnings and whispers about the castle's shadows, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. For the local community, the castle is both a landmark and a living storybook, its pages filled with lessons about pride, sorrow, and the spectral remnants of unquiet lives. Yet, despite its fame, and the footprints of the many who wander through its halls, Banffy Castle retains a core of solitude, a solemn dignity that no amount of curiosity can diminish. At night, when the last of the day's visitors have departed, and the sun dips below the horizon, the castle breathes a sigh, a sound almost like relief. It is in these quiet hours that the castle truly comes alive, not with fear, but with the presence of its past inhabitants, continuing their eternal vigil. In this epilogue, we reflect on the enduring mystery of Banffy Castle. It is a place where the past is palpable, where the boundary between what was and what is blurs into obscurity. The castle's allure lies in its ability to hold these stories, to be a keeper of secrets, a guardian of the threshold between life and the afterlife. For those who dare to listen, the castle whispers its tales, each stone and shadow enriched with the essence of its spectral occupants. And so, as our story ends, Banffy Castle stands not just as a structure of bricks and mortar, but as a monument to the eternal human fascination with the unknown, a beacon for the brave and the curious, its mysteries forever compelling, its whispers eternal. As the sun sets behind the silhouette of Banffy Castle, casting long shadows over its ancient stones, we bid farewell to this tale of mystery and hauntings. Our journey through its hallowed halls has been one of discovery, fear, and ultimately, acceptance. Though the spirits that dwell within its walls may never find release, their stories live on in the whispers of the wind and the creaking of the floorboards. Banffy Castle, with its tangled history and spectral residents, remains a beacon of fascination for those who seek to unravel its secrets. As we part ways with this enigmatic fortress, let us carry with us the lessons it has taught us, to respect the past, to acknowledge the unseen, and to understand that some mysteries are meant to endure. And so, as we step back into the world beyond, may we remember the echoes of Banffy Castle and the spirits that continue to watch over its ancient halls. Farewell, dear listeners, until we meet again in the realm of the unknown.